So Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah has finally broken his silence on the Israel state-sponsored terrorism in Lebanon by detonating pagers and then walkie-talkies across the country. We all saw that lunacy being exhibited by Israeli terrorists in the last 2 days. The latest act of Israeli terrorism in Lebanon has killed at least 37 people, including many children. Why are we not surprised? While over 4,000 people are injured, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry, the condition of at least 287 victims is very critical. There was no doubt in anybody's mind that this was the handiwork of Israeli terrorists. The rogue regime of bloodthirsty Benjamin Netanyahu maintained silence as expected, while sending hundreds of troops to the border with Lebanon. Clearly, they are preparing for another front. That's exactly was the motive of Netanyahu right from the beginning, to escalate the war, to make it, to convert it into a regional war, to drag America and all its Western backers into this illegal war. Now, how the sponsor of this Israeli terrorism, and I'm talking about the US, reacted? The US said it had no knowledge of the Israeli terrorism in Lebanon. War criminal Anthony Blinken, who arrived in Egypt on a mysterious trip yesterday, said he was still gathering facts.
So, Carly, we're still gathering information. We're still gathering the facts. I can't tell you in this moment what impact this will have. I certainly can't speak to what impact it might have on Hezbollah and its operations. That would demand other expertise. And again, it's also necessary to fully understand what's happened, and we're still in the process of doing that. One of the hallmarks, if that's the right word, of this effort, this extensive effort by the United States, Egypt, and Qatar to get to a ceasefire, to be the mediators, and to get it across the finish line. One of the hallmarks has been that it's a complicated process, and even the communications involved are complicated for obvious reasons, so things take time. And time and again, we've seen that in the intervening time, you might have an event, an incident, something that makes the process more difficult.
Isn't it cute that this war criminal always enters a never-ending process of gathering facts? Each time his country's proxy, Israel, causes large-scale murders with its terrorist attacks in occupied Palestinian territories and elsewhere in Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. He then also has the audacity to lecture the victims of Israeli terrorism, namely Palestinian people, Iran, Lebanon, to not retaliate Israeli aggression.
Broadly speaking, we've been very clear, and we remain very clear, about the importance of all parties avoiding any steps that could further escalate the conflict that we're trying to resolve in Gaza, to see it spread to other fronts. It's clearly not in the interest of anyone involved to see that happen. And that's why, again, it's imperative that all parties refrain from any actions that could escalate the conflict. We're focused on getting this ceasefire over the finish line. That would also, I think, materially improve the prospects of actually defusing the situation in northern Israel and southern Lebanon, particularly creating an environment in which people have the confidence to return to their homes, the tens of thousands of displaced people in Israel as well as in southern Lebanon. Getting the ceasefire would facilitate getting to that kind of agreement, and that's clearly the best path forward for everyone involved.
Blinken's pathetic double standard is now beginning to annoy even BBC reporters. Now, if a reporter working for pro-Israel BBC is fed up with Blinken's lies and deceit, then it's quite telling, isn't it? This was Frank Gardner, BBC security correspondent and my former colleague, just a while ago on BBC.
I suppose the worry is whether Anthony Blinken is simply being ignored now.
Yeah, well, that is the question. Are we seeing the limits of American influence in the Middle East at the moment?
Frank, just go on.
The analogy I would give here is imagine, sorry, forgive me for just sort of dumbing it down a little, but imagine if I come up to you and I punch you in the face. You're going to be pretty cross with me. And there's Anthony Blinken sitting over here saying, oh, no, hang on, Matthew, don't retaliate, calm it down, don't do anything. You're going to want to retaliate. And that's the feeling right now amongst the Hezbollah fighters, many of whom have got life-changing injuries.
I just hope that more and more reporters working for the Western media outlets call out the dirty tricks of these war criminals in the US and the UK. The escalation in the Middle East will have catastrophic impact on the global peace. These warmongers must be stopped. We know that right from the beginning they always wanted a regional war. History suggests that they thrive in killing innocent people. We saw in 2001 what they did. We saw in 2003 what they did in Iraq, killed more than 1 million people, innocent civilians, massacred, brutally slaughtered by the same people, and now the same people are desperate to cause a regional war in the Middle East. This is what Joe Biden's clown at the White House, John Kirby, had to say yesterday.
What I can tell you is we were not involved in yesterday's incidents or today's in any way, and I don't have anything more to share.
Has the Israelis let you know about these operations?
I don't have anything more to share today.
Confirm that it's the U.S. assessment that the Israelis were behind all this.
Nothing more to share.
The Israeli defense minister said today that this is a new era of the war. What's the White House's response to that? And how concerned are you that this will cause this escalation?
All I'll say is that we want to see the war end. And everything we've been doing since the beginning has been designed to prevent the conflict from escalating.
Usually, this Zionist and enemy of Palestinians is pretty quick to shed tears when the victims are Jewish people of Ukraine.
Putting aside whether you agree with his logic, do you believe that Putin is a rational actor?
I'm not a psychologist. Barely got a history degree from the University of South Florida. I'm not going to go into the psychology of Vladimir Putin. It's hard to look at what he's doing in Ukraine, what his forces are doing in Ukraine, and think that any ethical, moral individual could justify that. It's difficult to look at the It's difficult to look at some of the images and imagine that any well-thinking, serious, mature leader would do that. So I can't talk to his psychology.
But when terrorists from his second country, second home, Israel, slaughtered more than 40,000, including more than 28,000 women, children, and babies, he makes fun of their murders by saying that the war is dirty. There are collateral damages.
I said this the other day, and I think your question prompts me to say it again because I think it's an important notion. This is war. It is combat. It is bloody. It is ugly. And it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt going forward. I wish I could tell you something different. I wish that wasn't going to happen. But it is going to happen.
Last night, he was asked about the Gaza Health Ministry releasing the list of those killed by Israel and how the first 14 pages had names of those who were less than 1 year old. I was the first to report this a few days ago. You can watch the video here. You know how Kirby reacted? He had no answer to this question. And he said to the reporter that he will get back to her later. This is a quite well-known tactic used by the Zionists to hide the embarrassment on American culpability in Israeli war crimes.
The weekend, the Palestinian ministry in Gaza submitted a report with the names, IDs, ages of 34,000 people who've been killed since October 7th, over 7,000 more whose identities have not been verified. The first 14 pages of the report are babies under the age of 1, and 2 people over the age of 100. Has the White House seen that report, and do you have any comments beyond far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed in this conflict?
Let me take the question for you so I can get you back a good substantive.
I don't know if Hezbollah will retaliate and punish Israel. But what Israel has done is nothing less than a state-sponsored terrorism. Just imagine if it was Hamas or Hezbollah detonating communication devices at this scale in Israel, in which children and other civilians were victims. Would the Western media still be calling it a tactical coup by Hezbollah and Hamas? This is exactly how BBC's Middle East editor Jeremy Bowen praised Israeli terrorism in BBC Online piece. And he's one of those very few good ones that the BBC has. Imagine the rot in this publicly funded organization if this is how their better reporters behave. What these people fail to understand that such terror attacks by Israel are capable of affecting anyone. I mean anyone. What if this explosion had taken place in a plane flying midair with full of passengers? What if one of those passengers was a BBC reporter? Do these individuals not realize this? What's the compulsion to blindly support the first terrorist country built on stolen land in the world? Surely money can't be a reason, because all these reporters earn a lot of money, at least in excess of £100,000. Now anyway, let's wait for the next move by Hezbollah and their backers in Iran and supporters in Houthis. Netanyahu and his Western backers have surely set the region on fire. And that's not a good news at all. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that this platform is worth supporting, then you too can become a part of this movement. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.